this prayer, Shanti mantra is, we said, Hari, that they were on page 145, I believe. If you've had this, which you may not have yet, it'll be bottom of the page. The Shanti mantras are from the Vedas. And this one that we chant, you've heard us, those that have been with us, you've heard us chant many, many times, and it's a very powerful mantra. It's invocation of Guru, invocation of teacher into our lives. And we can chant together. Hari, anyone that joins, please chant with us. Om Sahanā-Vavatu, Sahanā Bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Paravavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. On below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki Jai, and for all of the saints and sages of all the traditions. Jai. English translation is like this. Om, may that, capital T, protect us both, teacher and disciple. May that cause both to enjoy the bliss of liberation. May we both exert to find out the true meaning of the scriptures. May our learning be brilliant, and may we never quarrel with each other. Om, peace, peace, peace. And then the last is recognizing Guru for us. And so here, Shivananda, Swami Shivananda, we say Jai, victory. Victory to the Guru is really victory for us, because that means the light within us wins out over the shadow. It doesn't happen by accident. This is our work, and the shadows are very, very dark and very pervasive in this time, and yet only the light is real. Having said that, we have to work in order to honor the light, in order to bring the light into the shadow, in order to integrate, in order to rise up. And so we say Jai to the Guru. The Guru is the light. The Guru is that within us which dispenses with the shadow by bringing the light to all of the places where the shadow has ruled. So that is Guru, and that's what the word Guru actually means. So we say Jai. And then all the saints and sages of all of the traditions, all the saints and sages of all of the traditions are really pointing to the same, and are really speaking from the same place of light. So let's talk a little bit about Viveka Chudamani. This is the book, and I will post a link now that we had the whole satsang yesterday morning, and then delete. And I know, again, that many of you had joined, and I'm very sorry for that experience. But I will post a link here in this discussion with the link to this, and it's available as a free download, and also Kindle and hard copies from Amazon and all of that. It's an inexpensive book. It's a very good book to have. It is for teaching of Vedanta. My first exposure to Vedanta came through a weekend workshop based on Viveka Chudamani. And so it's perfect. Viveka Chudamani translates to, here on this title it says Crest Jewel of Discrimination. I will tend to use Crest Jewel of Discernment instead of discrimination, and the word discernment instead of the word discrimination, because of also shadow, our terrible confusion about what's real and the calling out of others based on how they look or act or think or any of this, which would be the common use of the term discrimination in this time, racial discrimination, etc. And so the deeper meaning has really been lost. Discernment seems a bit more neutral. Discernment meaning to tell the difference between this and that, between I and you, or between ultimately the truth, that which is eternal, the light, we can say, and that which is temporal, ephemeral, constantly changing. So to discern between this and that. Shankaracharya we'll talk about a little bit this morning, just an introduction. Some of you know about Shankaracharya. And I'll just say a word about Swami Prabhavananda, who is the translator in company with Christopher Isherwood. And Swami Prabhavananda had come to the U.S. in 1923. He's a devotee of Ramakrishna lineage, for those who've heard of Sri Ramakrishna, and Swami Vivekananda. He's a disciple of Swami Vivekananda from India. Swami Vivekananda was the first yogi that had come west. He came to give a talk at the Council of World Religions, 1893, and really got yoga on the map in the West. That was really the very beginning of it, as far as we know. And Vedanta. And we'll discuss more Vedanta as we step forward as well, for anyone to whom the concept is new. So Swamiji came 1923. He served in the organization that Swami Vivekananda had established, which is the Vedanta Society of, fill in the blank, America, and also in Europe. He established the same. And then different cities and regions will have Vedanta societies, and they are all lineage. So they're staffed and supported by the lineage teachers. Swami Prabhavananda had become the head in 1930 of the Southern California Vedanta Society, so the Southern Vedanta Society of Southern California. And that was a time, by the way, where Vedanta was starting to be enamored by the progressives in society, which included the actors and actresses and writers and all of that. And the hotbed of that was in Southern California. That's when Hollywood was really becoming Hollywood. So Christopher Isherwood, for example, he'd been born in Germany. He ran away from the Nazis in Germany in 1933 before they were completely in power and established. And he ended up in Southern California, along with other names of the time, who we could visualize all would have gathered at the Vedanta Society of Southern California, and some of which also made up disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda when Yogananda came to the West, which wasn't long after that. Yeah, about that same time. So, and he also traveled the country, very well established. As we'll see with working with the text, Swami Prabhavananda is a saint of a very high order, very humble, and also very established in the truth and understanding of these highest truths. Here's what he shares about Shankara. We'll read some as he introduces Shankara for us. He says, beautiful and fantastic clouds of legend surround the austere, charming, boyish figure of Shankara, saint, philosopher, and poet. But historically speaking, we know very little about the circumstances of his life. He was born in or around the year 686 AD of Brahmin parents at Kaladi, a small village of western Malabar in southern India. By the age of 10, he was already an academic prodigy. Not only had he read and memorized all the scriptures, but he had written commentaries on many of them and had held discussions with famous scholars who came to him from every part of the country. If we caught that by the age of 10, And we summarize at the end of this some of these works that he'd written commentaries already upon, which stand today. Yet the boy was dissatisfied. At a time when most children are only beginning to study, he was already disgusted by the emptiness of book knowledge. He saw that his teachers did not practice the lofty truths they preached. Indeed, the whole society in which he lived, was materialistic and pleasure-seeking. India was passing through a period of spiritual decadence. Shankara, burning with youthful zeal, resolved to make his own life an example which would lead men back to the paths of truth. At this period, his father died. The boy puzzled over the riddle of life and death and determined to solve it. He would renounce everything in his search for the meaning of existence. It was then that he wrote the poem called Moha Mudgaram, translating to the shattering of illusion. And here's a more or less literal translation. So here's the poem. Who is thy wife? Who is thy son? The ways of this world are strange indeed. Whose art thou? Whence art thou come? Vast is thy ignorance, my beloved. Therefore ponder these things and worship the Lord. Behold the folly of man. In childhood busy with his toys, in youth bewitched by love, in age bowed down with cares, and always unmindful of the Lord. The hours fly, the seasons roll, life ebbs, but the breeze of hope blows continuously in his heart. Birth brings death, death brings rebirth. This evil needs no proof. Where then, O man, is thy happiness? This life trembles in the balance like water on a lotus leaf. And yet the sage can show us in an instant how to bridge this sea of change. When the body is wrinkled, when the hair turns gray, when the gums are toothless and the old man's staff shakes like a reed beneath his weight, the cup of his desire is still full. Thy son may bring thee suffering, thy wealth is no assurance of heaven. Therefore be not vain of thy wealth, or of thy family, or of thy youth. All are fleeting, all must change. Know this and be free. Enter the joy of the Lord. Seek neither peace nor strife with kith nor kin, with friend or foe. O beloved, if thou wouldst attain freedom, be equal unto all. Shankara now persuaded his mother to let him take the monastic vow, promising that he would return to visit her before she died. Then, having made arrangements for her needs, he set out in search of a teacher. And here's the story from this. So if you can visualize, Shankara is 10 years old, and he tells his mother, Mother, I need to go do my duty now. I need to renounce the world, be a monk, and travel India. But I will come back to you before you die and care for you. This is what he tells her. What do you think she says? And so she does, and this is the story. She says, No, you're crazy. You're not doing that. And so as the story plays out, one day, the two of them had gone to the river, and he was swimming in the river, and his mother's on the riverbank, and he's swimming, and she's sure that he's quite enjoying himself. And then he yells out, and a crocodile has grabbed him by the body and pulls him underwater. And his mother is in shock. She sees the scene. He yelled, and then he's gone. And after a little time, he pops back up, but he's still being held. And he has his hand above the water, and his head is above the water, and he says, Mother, before I die, could I please renounce? Could I be a monk now? And so his mother says, yes. And the crocodile lets him go, and he swims back to the shore. This is the story in terms of how she finally said yes. So he goes on. On the banks of the river Narmada, he met Gaudapada, a famous philosopher and seer who had attained knowledge of the reality. Shankara asked the old man for initiation, but Gaudapada refused. He had made a vow to remain absorbed in union with Brahman. However, he sent the boy to his foremost disciple, Govindapada. Govindapada initiated him and instructed him in meditation and the whole process of yoga. Within a very short time, Shankara achieved complete mystical realization and himself went out to teach. One morning, when he was on his way to bathe in the Gangas, he met a Chandala, a member of the lowest caste, the untouchables. The man had 4 dogs with him, and they were blocking Shankara's path. For a moment, inborn caste prejudice asserted itself. Shankara, the Brahmin, ordered the Chandala out of his way. But the Chandala answered, if there is only one God, how can there be many kinds of men? Shankara was filled with shame and reverence. He prostrated himself before the Chandala. This incident inspired one of Shankara's finest poems, the Manisha Panchaka. It consists of 5 stanzas, each one ending with the refrain. I'll read the refrain. This poem and the first poem, they're chanted, they're sung, and these are on YouTube, and they're so beautiful being chanted in Sanskrit, so beautiful and so powerful. And there are many other, they're called stotrams, these poems, these chanted mantras, prayers from Shankara. He was such an inspiration in this way, is such an inspiration. So the 5 stanzas, that's the pancha, 5 stanzas, Manisha Panza. Each one ended with the refrain. He who has learned to see the one existence everywhere, he is my master. Be him Brahmin, highest class, or Chandala, the lowest. Shankara began his teaching among the scholars of the country, converting the teachers first and then their pupils. One of them was the famous philosopher Mandan Misra. Mandan Misra held that the life of the householder was far superior to that of the monk, and his opinion was respected and widely shared throughout India. Shankara had determined to argue with him and journeyed to his home. When he arrived, he found the doors locked. Misra was holding a religious ceremony and did not wish to be disturbed. We'll pick it up, and I feel the need to share this. We had discussed for a moment when we were talking about this yesterday. So many of us are householder. That's the position that we hold, the Dharma. The meaning of what's being shared here is actually deeper than just what we do. What Shankara's position is that whatever is most important to us is what we will achieve. And when he speaks of monastic, he's speaking of having renounced the attachment to the forms and the objects and achieving some satisfaction from them. A common view of the householder life is to have a family and derive joy from the family, from the raising of the family. And those of us who have played this role understand that that joy is fleeting. And here we are speaking about the highest teaching. Shankara is saying it's not about what you do that will bring the joy, that will bring the happiness that you seek. It's about what is most important to you and what is the underlying bhava, the underlying attitude, the underlying approach of your life. His approach and what he shared is that this relationship with the Lord, with the Absolute, with the highest, with the capital S self, is most important. And that is what will bring you to what you're seeking. And these paths are about finding what we seek, this eternal, this happiness. And so his position was, no, if you live in order to get something, no matter what the circumstances are, that won't bring you what you're actually seeking, that you have to renounce your attachment, your cravings for these things, and put first and foremost this relationship with the Absolute. Whether you're in the family role or some other role, that part doesn't make a difference. The role that we're playing doesn't make a difference. How we play the role is what makes the difference. And this was the argument and the discussion. In fact, still today I get messages primarily from people in India saying, I want to be a monk. But what they're saying is, I want to wear orange and have people treat me a certain way. And I will share with you that how we're treated as a monk is quite varied. And not ultimately fulfilling, although there might be an idea that it would be. Some people might revere us, but that reverence might be empty. And some people might kick us in the butt, which frankly we need. And so once again, it's not the role that we play, it's what is the underlying bhava and what is most important to us. What is the underlying intention? What is the motive of what we do? Okay, so we'll come back now to the point that Swamiji is sharing. It says, Mishra was holding a religious ceremony and did not wish to be disturbed. Shankara, with the mischievous spirit of a boy in his teens, climbed a nearby tree and jumped down from it into the courtyard. Mishra noticed him among the crowd. He disapproved of monks, especially when they were so youthful, and asked sarcastically, whence comes this shaven head? You have eyes to see, sir, Shankara answered saucily. The shaven head comes up from the neck. Mishra lost his temper, but Shankara continued to tease him, and at length the two of them agreed to hold a debate on the relative merits of the monks' and householders' lives. It was understood that Shankara, if he lost, should become a householder, and that Mishra, if he lost, should become a monk. The debate lasted for several days. Bharati, the learned wife of Mishra, acted as umpire. Finally, Shankara was able to convince Mishra of the superiority of the monastic life, and Mishra became his disciple. It was he who later annotated Shankara's commentaries on the Brahma Sutras. Shankara's life came to an end at Kedarnath in the Himalayas. He was only 2 years old. During this brief period, he had established many monasteries and had founded 10 monastic orders. This was the first time that monasticism had ever been organized in India, and Shankara's system still exists at the present day. This lineage, for example, is Saraswati order. And so Swami Shivananda's name, Swami Shivananda Saraswati. And the full name that I'm given is Swami Shankarananda Saraswati. So that denotes the lineage. Yogananda, for example, is Giri order. So these 10 still exist today. He was a reformer rather than an innovator. He preached no new doctrine or creed, but he gave a new impulse to the spiritual life of the time. Separated by intervals of 1,000 years, like 3 tremendous mountain peaks, Buddha, Shankara, and Ramakrishna dominate the range of India's religious history. And here we get the lineage coming in. Shankara's literary output was enormous. He not only made commentaries on the Vedanta Sutras, the principal Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita, but produced two major philosophical works, the Upadasasastri and the Viveka Chudamani, which we study here together over the next 2.5 weeks. He was also the author of many poems, hymns, prayers, these stotrams that we had discussed, and other minor works on Vedanta. It says minor works, but also very deep. And Tattva Bodh. We had Tattva Bodh. Mataji was walking us through and completed the study of Tattva Bodha as a working group. That's one of these works. And in fact, we would not say that it's not deep. It's quite deep, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So several other works as well attributed to Shankaracharya. The Crest Jewel of Discrimination is written entirely in verse, possibly because this would be easier for pupils to memorize. The lines are long and the meter is intricate. We've decided not to attempt to produce it in English. Shankara's message is infinitely more important than its literary form. Clarity has been our only aim through the text. For this reason, we've not hesitated to paraphrase and expand wherever necessary, but the translation remains on the whole very close to the original. That's the reason I recommend for anyone wanting to follow along with us, if you wish to have a book, it should be this particular translation. Because with this work in particular, everyone who translates it takes a bit of a different approach with the translation for that reason. Okay, so that's it for the morning. Hari, would you check and see if we have any questions or comments? And then we'll close with final prayers and arati.
Hiller is saying, I love the distinction between discrimination and discernment. It's too bad that language gets so muddled in the mind.
Oh. Okay. Okay, good. So page 156 in this Kirtan book is the final prayers. We can repeat together. And then arati follows immediately. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rakameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rakameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rakameva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, Sarve Shantu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto, Makashi Dukhabhag Bhave, Asatoma Satgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya, Om Purnamida Purnamidam Purnat, Purnamudashate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vasishate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Universal prayer. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing Thy glories. Let Thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Bolo Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki Jai. For all the saints and sages of all the traditions.
Jai.
Jai. Let's stand for Arati.